Hi, it's Sunday, June 21st, 2020. My name is Noah Seeley, and welcome to my channel. Today's Sunday, which means we'll be looking at some computer hardware today. I like to devote Sunday's video to hardware-related topics, so we can stay on top of the current climate of PC parts and hardware, in order to appreciate computer science with a broader perspective. Today I'm going to be sharing my research so far into the process of switching out a motherboard. As I mentioned last Sunday, soon I'll be switching out some parts in my PC, and I'm using these videos as time to research some of that stuff that I should know for the Switch, as well as showing this research for anyone who may also be interested in switching out their own PC parts. So out of everything that I've watched and read relating to this topic of switching out motherboards, I found 2 videos and 1 article which describe the process pretty well, and I'm just going to basically summarize them here in this video for you guys today. Unfortunately, as of now, I have no visuals for replacing these parts, so I will link all of the resources below for you guys to go check out in order to see those very important visuals. So the videos are by AirBear, PCGameN, and the article is by Thomas Ryan at PCWorld.com. So as for those listed resources, they all give a pretty similar algorithm of how to switch out a motherboard, and I'll sum them all up in the following steps. So for starters, taking everything out that's already in your PC case, first you're going to want to unplug and turn off your power supply, then hold the on button on your case for a few seconds, a few times over. This will drain out any static that might remain in your PC. The second step is to open the actual PC case. The third step is then to take out your GPU. This is the first part that you're going to want to take out. You'll probably have to start by unplugging it from the power, then unscrew your graphics card from the case, and then wiggle it out of the motherboard. Sometimes you might have to press a few tabs down in order to unlock it from the PCIe slot that it's been in. This is usually the first thing we want to take out, as GPUs are pretty clunky and they tend to get in the way of the rest of the parts that we'll have to be working with for these steps. The fourth step is that we can take out the RAM. Now personally, I'll be adding new RAM sticks to my new motherboard, so I might not even take these out right away. PCGameN also advises that you can actually just leave it in there and deal with removing the RAM when the motherboard is out of its case. I think it all kind of depends on personal preference and if the RAM is getting in the way of anything else. So step number 5 is that you can then remove the cooling fan on top of the CPU chip on the motherboard, and then remove any other fans or cooling devices around the case. So to remove any of those fans listed will usually involve both unplugging them from the motherboard and then unscrewing them. So the last step for this very simple algorithm in removing all of the parts is that we can simply unplug everything else from the motherboard. While we're unplugging all of these, we have to really make sure that any tabs for safe ejection are pressed before we eject those parts or wires. Once all of that's removed, we can simply unscrew the motherboard from its case. So yeah, that should do it for removing the motherboard from your case, and now you should have a clean and empty case. Feel free to clean out any dust that has accumulated on your parts or in the case, and any remaining thermal paste on your cooling system. Try to do all of this cleaning lightly with paper towel and rubbing alcohol if required. As for reinstalling everything onto your new motherboard, we're going to start by installing your new CPU onto that motherboard. So we'll do this by basically opening up the chip socket with that lever, removing its protective shell, and lightly placing in your CPU chip. We can then gently lower the holder and secure the lever. If you feel any resistance with this part, I'd advise you to slow down and maybe check if all of the tabs and pins are properly lined up from your CPU chip to the motherboard, instead of trying to force something into place, as this might cause some damage to either part. We can then install the RAM, which is as simple as locking the RAM stick into the proper RAM slot, and then perhaps clicking it shut with a tab to secure it into place on the motherboard. The important part of installing RAM is to make sure that you're putting each stick in the right way and on the correct slot. Usually you'll have to fill the RAM sockets closer to the CPU first. Now you can put in your new motherboard's I/O shield into your case. This may require a little more force as well. Once this is in, you can basically line up the I/O shield with the corresponding parts on your motherboard and then start screwing it into your case. It might be easier to start with the top screws, so you don't actually have to hold it precisely in place for that long of a time. After this, your new motherboard should be in. So we can then put a few drops of thermal paste on the center of your CPU chip and then place your CPU fan onto the chip. This should spread the thermal paste evenly across your surface. And then you can screw in the fan. We don't want to tighten the screws too much here, as if they're too tight, the motherboard can be warped, which could screw up or cause damage to your build. After this, you can simply screw in the rest of your cooling systems back to as they were in your case. So before you put your GPU back in, both videos actually advised that you first do some wire management, basically plugging in your HDD, SSD, cooling wires, and anything else back into your motherboard. This part can be pretty tedious, and depending on your case and motherboard, you may have to refer to the labeling on the motherboard, or unfortunately, it's manual. This is a super important step to get done though, so patience is very important. Once all the wires are in and you're happy with your cable management, you can finally install back your graphics card. Click it into the PCI socket, plugging in any necessary wiring, and then screwing it into the back of the case. This might take a couple tries to make sure you get a really good fit for your GPU onto your motherboard. So once that's all done, you can plug your power supply back in and turn on your PC. If it doesn't boot at first, don't worry. Your motherboard will hopefully help you troubleshoot your problem, and the resources that I've linked below also give some really nice tips. Usually it's just something that's not connected quite right, or something that's slightly loose. So it's important to double check everything for those issues. If you've followed all the steps in my previous Hardware Sunday video explaining how to reduce the risk of frying your parts, which I will link in the description below, you should be able to rule out any issues relating to that. I'd advise at least ordering an anti-static wristband for around $10 Canadian to really make sure you're preventing any static issues. Hopefully you've been able to follow all of these steps though, and your PC boots with your new motherboard, CPU, and whatever else you've decided to add. So yeah, that's it for this week's Hardware Sunday. We quickly went through a few of the essential steps that are recommended in order to correctly switch out your PC's motherboard. There are more technical bits to all of this, of course, so as always, I've linked all resources that I've used in the description below for you guys to go check out yourselves. If you feel that I've missed anything or got anything wrong, please let me know in the comment section below. That's all for today. Thanks for watching. See you tomorrow.